I found unexpected messages from a female coworker on my partner's phone, and doubt and suspicion quickly turned my life upside down. 7:15 a.m. My apartment. I woke up to the sound of my alarm and immediately noticed a new message on Alex's phone. My heart skipped a beat. He usually doesn't check messages this early. A message from Sophie. Do you want to discuss our project after work today? Something about that line felt off. The smell of freshly brewed coffee wasn't helping calm the unease bubbling inside me. Alex, are you hiding something from me? I asked without even getting out of bed. I'm not hiding anything, he mumbled, hearing the tension in my voice, but his tone sounded oddly quiet. Breakfast was silent. I tried not to seem suspicious, but the scrape of the spoon on the plate sounded like a warning bell. You seem kind of distant today. I broke the silence. Nothing, just tired, he replied, but his eyes kept darting away. The office. The smell of coffee and the shuffle of papers filled the air. Sophie was unusually friendly. Her smile unnervingly warmed. You look exhausted today. Want some coffee? She asked. Thanks, but I'll manage, I said, feeling a chill from the way she looked at me. Coming home, I couldn't stop thinking about the message. Every ping from Alex's phone made my heart race, like I was bracing for a punch. In the kitchen, the smell of toasted bread lingered. I know you're hiding something from me, I burst out, unable to hold back. Emma, you're accusing me without proof. He tried to calm me, but his embarrassment only fueled my doubt. That night, I couldn't sleep. The music in my headphones barely drowned out the sound of rain tapping against the window. Thoughts spun in my head. Maybe I'm just being paranoid? Maybe it's only work messages. But why doesn't my heart believe him? Another message from Sophie blinked on the screen. My chest tightened. The next day, I met my friend Lisa at a cafe. The chatter of other customers and the smell of fresh pastries couldn't distract me from the topic. Is he really being dishonest with you? Lisa asked. I don't know, but I feel like something's off, I replied, the weight in my chest growing heavier. Back at home, I noticed Alex responding to messages in hidden mode. The cold touch of the phone in my hand heightened the sense of dread. Who is this? I demanded sharply. Just a coworker, he muttered, but his eyes betrayed him that I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. Tears welled up as the rain continued its soft drumming outside. My heart was pounding, my hands shaking. I felt like this story was only just beginning. Next evening in my apartment, the rain had finally stopped, but the air still smelled damp and heavy. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, staring at Alex's last message. My mind was spinning. Why does everything feel like a lie? I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I opened the messaging app again and noticed subtle notifications from Sophie that Alex had quickly deleted. My stomach twisted. Alex, I need to ask you something seriously, I said, voice shaking as he entered the living room. What is it now? He replied, a flicker of unease crossing his face. Those messages. Why were you hiding them? Who is Sophie really to you? He sighed, running a hand through his hair, the fluorescent light above casting long shadows across the room. Emma, it's not what you think. She's just a coworker. We're coordinating on a project, he said. But his eyes kept avoiding mine. I felt a lump in my throat. The smell of his cologne mixed with the faint scent of wet clothes from the rain outside made my head spin. Alex, I need honesty. If this is just work, then show me. Don't make me feel like I'm losing my mind over nothing, I whispered, almost pleading. He paused, looking down at his hands, then back at me. All right, there's more context. Sophie has been helping me with some personal stuff. Nothing inappropriate, I swear. But I didn't tell you because I thought it would stress you out. I felt my body tense. My heart raced. Helping him with personal stuff? What does that even mean? Personal stuff? Like what? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Just things from work spilling over. I didn't want to worry you, he said softly, the room growing quiet except for the faint hum of the fridge. I could feel my hands trembling, the leather of the couch cold under my fingers. I wanted to believe him, but the lingering suspicion was like a shadow I couldn't shake. I need to see the truth, Alex. I can't live in half-truths anymore. He looked at me for a long moment, and I noticed the small twitch of his jaw, the way his shoulders stiffened. My stomach churned, knowing we were teetering on the edge of a revelation that could change everything. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. Another message from Sophie. We need to talk after work tomorrow. It's important. My chest tightened. Who is this important for? I demanded, my voice rising. Emma. It's nothing like that. I promise, he said. But even he sounded unsure. I ran my fingers through my hair, pacing across the apartment. The soft glow of the streetlights, filtering through the blinds, created patterns on the floor that made my head spin. I can't just sit here. I have to confront this head-on. I grabbed my coat and keys. I'm going to see her, I said firmly. Wait. Alex tried to stop me, but I was already out the door. Outside, the cool night air hit me like a jolt. I could hear the distant hum of cars and the occasional bark of a dog. My heart pounded with every step, and I realized this was the point of no return. I needed answers, one way or another. The next evening, I found myself outside the cafe where Sophie had asked to meet. The warm light spilling from the windows contrasted with the chilly autumn air, and I could smell the faint aroma of baked bread as I pushed the door open. My stomach twisted with nerves. Emma, hi, Sophie said, standing up from a corner table. Her smile was polite but tense. Hi, Sophie. I think we need to clear some things up, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though my hands were trembling slightly. She gestured for me to sit, and I noticed the faint scent of her perfume, something floral and sharp. I just want to understand, what's going on with you and Alex? The messages, the secrecy. I asked directly. Sophie hesitated, biting her lip. Emma, I promise, nothing inappropriate happened. Alex he confided in me about some work stress. That's all. I crossed my arms, trying to contain my anger. Then why the constant messages, the hiding? I pressed I didn't know how to tell him to tell you. I thought it would just confuse things more. My mind raced. Everything about her words sounded rehearsed, yet part of me wanted to believe her. I could hear the faint clinking of cups from the barista, the low hum of conversation around us. My hands were clammy, and I felt the cafe's warmth doing little to calm me. So, there's nothing else? I asked, leaning forward. Nothing, I swear. I didn't want any trouble between you two, Sophie said quietly, avoiding my gaze. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my heartbeat. I realized the knot of doubt wasn't fully untied. Yet, I need to go home and think, I said finally, standing up. Emma, she started, but I shook my head, already stepping toward the door. Outside, the cool night air hit me sharply. I walked quickly, my thoughts spinning. Part of me wanted to scream, part of me wanted to cry. I couldn't be sure yet, but I knew one thing. I needed to confront Alex again and finally demand the full truth. When I got back to the apartment, the place felt quieter than usual. The faint smell of dinner still lingered in the kitchen, but I barely noticed. My thoughts were a whirlwind, and I could feel the tension coiling in my chest. Alex looked up from the couch, his expression a mix of guilt and worried. You're back earlier than I thought, he said, trying to sound casual. We need to talk, Alex. Now. My voice was firmer than I expected, and I saw his eyes widen slightly. I walked closer, the hardwood floor creaking under my weight. The soft hum of the refrigerator filled the silence between us. I went to see Sophie. I began, forcing the words out, and I still don't understand. Why all the secrecy? Why the messages? He ran a hand over his face, the overhead light casting shadows across the room. Emma, I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was protecting you, not making you feel like this. My stomach churned. A mix of relief and lingering anger. Protecting me? By hiding everything? By letting me feel like I'm losing my mind? I exclaimed, pacing slightly, feeling the leather of the couch under my fingertips as I brushed past. He sighed deeply and finally looked at me, his eyes raw. I should have told you from the start. Sophie has been helping me with some personal issues. That's it. Nothing more. I didn't want to stress you out while you were already dealing with work and everything. I stopped, staring at him, trying to measure the truth in his eyes. My heart still raced, and I could feel the tension in my shoulders start to loosen, but not completely. I want honesty, Alex. All of it. No more secrets. If we're doing this, we do it together. He nodded slowly, and I noticed the small tremor in his hands. Okay. No more secrets. I promise. For a moment, the apartment was silent except for the faint ticking of the wall clock and the soft buzz of the fridge. I sank onto the couch, letting myself exhale, though part of me still braced for disappointment. "So we're okay?" I asked cautiously. "We'll be okay," he replied, reaching out to gently take my hand that I let him, though a small voice inside me reminded me this was just the beginning of rebuilding trust. The knot of doubt was easing, but the memory of those hidden messages lingered like a shadow. The next morning, I stayed in bed longer than usual, staring at the ceiling. The soft light filtering through the blinds made the room feel calm, but my mind was anything but. Every detail from the previous night replayed in my head. The look in Alex's eyes, Sophie's hesitant smile, the messages flashing on my phone that I reached for my journal, something I hadn't touched in months, and began writing. I want to trust him again, but I feel like I'm standing on a cliff, and one wrong step could make me fall. The pen scratched across the paper as I tried to untangle my feelings. Later, I made breakfast, the smell of toast and coffee grounding me. Alex came into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Morning," he said softly. "Morning," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. That we ate in silence at first, the clinking of cutlery the only sound. I watched him carefully, noting the small gestures, how he poured his coffee, the way he avoided my gaze sometimes. It was subtle, but those little things told me he was trying. "I'm going to be honest today," I said finally, breaking the quiet. "Okay," he responded, his tone cautious. "I need to rebuild trust slowly. I can't just pretend. Everything is fine. I'll try, but you have to meet me halfway." He nodded, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I understand, Emma. I'll do whatever it takes." The rest of the day passed in a blur of small, ordinary moments. Making lunch together, doing laundry, walking in the park nearby. Each little interaction felt heavy with meaning, like we were tiptoeing around invisible cracks. Yet, there was a flicker of hope, an understanding that even broken trust could be mended slowly but surely. That evening, I sat by the window, watching the city lights reflect on the wet streets. The memory of the messages still lingered, but I told myself that tonight, at least, I would try to breathe. I realized that healing wasn't a single event. It was a series of small choices, each one demanding patience and courage, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a fragile sense of control return. The following evening, we stayed in, the apartment quiet except for the occasional hum of traffic outside. I was curled up on the couch, blanket around my shoulders, trying to focus on a book, but my attention kept drifting. Every small sound made me glance up, the tapping of his fingers on the table, the shuffle of papers. Alex noticed my distracted gaze. "You're quiet tonight. Everything okay?" he asked, a hint of concern in his voice. "Yeah, just thinking," I replied, forcing a casual tone, though my stomach was tight. That I watched him carefully as he moved around the kitchen, the faint scent of his cologne mixing with the aroma of simmering soup. Every small action felt like a test of honesty. Did he notice me watching? Was he trying too hard? Later, while we were eating, I tried to gauge his reactions, studying the way he laughed at a joke I didn't even make, the subtle glances toward his phone. "Emma, you're staring," he said, raising an eyebrow. "I'm not," I stammered, realizing I sounded defensive. The tension lingered, but there was also a strange comfort in this careful observation. I was learning, slowly, how to read him again, to measure actions against words, to separate trust from suspicion. After dinner, we moved to the living room. I could see the exhaustion in his posture, the weight of guilt and effort pressing down. I felt a pang of sympathy mixed with frustration. "I'm trying," he murmured, almost to himself, "trying not to mess this up." That I nodded silently. "I know, and I'm trying too," I thought, curling tighter into the blanket. The night stretched on with soft conversation, punctuated by comfortable silences. Small gestures, a hand brushing mine accidentally, a shared laugh, reminded me that rebuilding trust wasn't instant, but possible. As I finally got up to tidy the kitchen, I realized the feeling of tension had eased slightly. Not gone, not fully, but enough to breathe again. The path ahead was still uncertain, but it felt a little less like walking blind. The next day, I was back at work, trying to focus, but my mind kept drifting to Alex and the uneasy calm between us. During a short coffee break, I noticed a notification on his phone that flashed briefly before disappearing. My stomach sank. That I told myself to breathe. Maybe it's nothing, I thought, yet the knot of anxiety refused to loosen. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was simmering just below the surface. Later that evening, when I returned home, the apartment felt too quiet. Alex was on the couch, scrolling his phone, but there was a certain tension in the way his shoulders were hunched. "Hey," I said cautiously, sinking into the chair across from him. "Hey," he replied, glancing up, a faint smile that didn't quite reach his eyes that I wanted to trust him, but the flicker of doubt in my chest was louder than my desire for calm. "Who were you texting earlier?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Just work stuff, Emma. Nothing important," he answered quickly, but I caught the slight hesitation that I let it go for the moment, but the tension remained, an invisible thread pulling tight between us. I decided to occupy myself, tidying the living room while he sat. Silently, the soft buzz of his phone punctuating the quiet. Later, I caught a glimpse of him glancing at the screen again, and my pulse quickened. Am I overreacting? Or is this a sign of something deeper? I felt torn between my instincts and my desire to believe him. Finally, I sat down beside him, exhaling slowly. "Alex, I don't want to fight," I said softly, "but I also can't ignore these feelings. I need transparency." He looked at me, a mixture of guilt and weariness in his expression. "I know, Emma, and I'll do better. I promise," he said, reaching for my hand. Even as he held my hand, I felt the lingering tension, the fragile thread of trust we were trying to weave. I knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in days, there was a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could navigate it together. That evening, I decided to be proactive. I wanted clarity, not just reassurance. I pulled out Alex's calendar and tried to piece together the timeline of all those hidden messages, comparing it to what he had told me. The apartment smelled faintly of leftover dinner, and the soft light from the kitchen lamp cast shadows across the table. "Alex, I need to go through something with you," I said, spreading the notes in front of him. He leaned in, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension in his eyes. "All right, what is it?" I pointed to specific dates and messages, keeping my voice calm but firm. "These messages, the times they were sent, the things you said, it doesn't fully add up. Can you help me understand?" Alex rubbed the back of his neck, the subtle tension in his shoulders making me wince. "Emma, I see how it looks, but I swear, there's nothing shady here. I just didn't realize how confusing it would seem." I felt a flicker of hope, but also a lingering wariness. "I need you to be completely honest," I pressed. "No half-truths. If I'm going to trust you again, I need the full picture." He nodded, taking a deep breath, and for the first time in days, he seemed genuinely open. "Okay, here's everything. Sophie was helping me with some project stress and personal stuff I didn't want to burden you with. I didn't realize it would cause so much doubt. I should have told you sooner." I exhaled, relief and residual frustration mingling in my chest. The soft hum of the fridge and distant city noise made the moment feel strangely intimate, like we were the only two people in the world. "Thank you for telling me," I said finally, squeezing his hand. "I still have work to do on trusting fully, but this helps." He gave me a small, genuine smile, and for the first time in a while, the apartment felt lighter. It was quiet, but the tension that had dominated the past weeks seemed to ease slightly. I realized that trust wasn't rebuilt in a single evening. It was a slow process, built one conversation, one gesture, one honest moment at a time. Over the next few days, things started to feel lighter. The small gestures of everyday life, making coffee together, sharing a laugh over a silly show, even doing chores side by side, felt like tiny victories. I noticed Alex making an effort, putting his phone down when I walked into the room, checking in with honest updates about work. Still, the shadow of doubt lingered in quiet moments. One evening, while I was scrolling through my messages, I saw a notification from Sophie pop up again. My chest tightened instantly. "Emma?" Alex asked, noticing my expression. "Nothing, just a message from Sophie," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice faltered slightly. He gave me a small, knowing smile. "Don't worry. I've told you everything. You can trust me," he said, reaching for my hand across the coffee table. I nodded, trying to let go of the lingering anxiety. The apartment smelled faintly of baked cookies, and the soft glow from the lamp made the living room feel warmer. I realized that trust was a process, not an immediate switch, and I was slowly learning to allow myself to believe him again. Later that night, we sat on the couch, together, feet brushing under the blanket. You know, I've missed this, just being us, Alex murmured, resting his head against mine. Me too. I replied softly that IT wasn't perfect, and I could still feel remnants of doubt nibbling at the edges of my mind. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were moving forward, step by step, slowly untangling the mess of emotions and miscommunication that had almost broken us. And though the past weeks had been stressful, exhausting, and emotional, I realized that we were learning something important: how to rebuild trust, even when it felt fragile, and how to let small, honest moments carry the weight of healing. A few days later, the apartment felt calm in a way it hadn't in weeks. I was making tea in the kitchen, the warm aroma filling the air, and Alex was sitting at the table, casually flipping through a book. There was a quiet comfort between us now, the tension of uncertainty easing. You know, Alex said suddenly. Looking up, I've been thinking about how messy everything got. I'm sorry for not being upfront from the start. I smiled faintly, stirring my tea. I know. And I'm sorry too, for letting my mind spiral. But I think we're finally getting somewhere. He nodded, a soft light of relief in his eyes. Yeah, step by step, right? We spent the evening talking, honestly, about work, life, and the small things we had ignored in the past. Every shared laugh, every small confession felt like a thread sewing us back together. I could feel the weight of weeks of doubt lifting, slowly but surely. Later, as we curled up on the couch, the city lights flickering through the blinds, I realized something important. Trust wasn't about never feeling doubt again. It was about choosing to believe again and again, even when fear lingered. I guess we're okay now, I whispered, letting my head rest on his shoulder. Yeah, we really are, he replied, wrapping an arm around me. The past weeks had been painful, exhausting, and full of emotion, but they had also taught me something essential. Honesty, patience, and small gestures could rebuild what once seemed broken. And as I finally let myself relax, I knew we were stronger for it, ready to move forward, together.